You are listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Christy Macero and Sheila Maychek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Spilling the Tea. We are your hosts, Christy Macero and Sheila Maychek.
Hello.
Today, sitting with us is reoccurring guest realtor Gary Voigt, who has done many episodes with us, and our member of the public, who is as brainy as he is tactical, Kevin Sear.
Welcome.
Hello.
I forgot to say hello.
That's okay. There's time.
Yeah.
But tonight's episode, let's chat style, shall we? If you ever walk into a paint store, you see the most beautiful of colors and the most undesirable colors, but it all comes down to beauty being in the eye of the beholder. And today we're going to discuss all things personal style. When you're no longer renting and you finally own a place, you really get to personalize and make permanent changes. It's one of the most fun parts of home ownership, but it can also be extremely stressful. Picking out the right finishings, the right shade of green, or even hiring the right contractors. And the debate is always, do you upgrade the kitchen now and enjoy it, or do you upgrade it before you sell? Mm-hmm. Do you leave it in the meantime? Like, what are we doing when we're owning the house? And what if the new owners don't like your choices?
I've seen that on brand new renovated homes. People walk in and be like, I would have never picked these finishes.
Yeah, and it's the money down the drain. You know every seller is going to want like top dollar. So,
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that, let's start the way we always do. And we're going to ask Sheila some questions.
Ready.
Sheila, how many weeks does it, no, I'm just kidding. How long does it take you to pick a paint color?
Oh, forever. I'm really awful. I'm the girl that goes to the paint store and takes 20 samples home, like the little paint chips, and I'm holding them on the wall in different shades of the sunlight and different things, and I take forever to pick one because I'm always afraid of, if I pick it and I don't like it, I'm never going to change it again. Like, I'm not going to repaint. I'm going to do it one time.
So it has to be perfect.
It has to be perfect.
But it's just paint.
Just paint, yeah. So I take a long time. You, on the other hand, I feel like you pick a paint color in like 2 seconds.
We do.
Yeah.
My husband and I will look at a paint color and I'll be like, yeah, I like it. Do you like it? Yeah, it's done.
It's different shades of
It takes
white.
like 2 seconds.
I was just going to say, do you know how many shades of white there is?
We have 2 different shades of white in our
Hundreds.
house. Yeah. Gary, how long does it take you to pick a paint color?
Oh, it's embarrassing to say, but it takes a while because I only recently learned how many different colors of white there are and how they change when you actually put it in the room and then you put flooring in and it's completely a different type of white, a different shade of white.
Now, did you guys wear white-ish sweaters to show that point today? Is that...
Yes, we texted each other and
Kevin, how
made
long
sure
does it...
we had matching outfits.
How long does it take you to pick a paint color?
I take a page out of your husband's book, whereas if my wife leads off with, I like this color, do you like it? It's just automatic agreement.
Yeah, see, they're
so
trained the
smart.
same.
This
So
is
this is what
smart.
they train them.
I wish I was that cool.
It's intuitive.
Sheila, have you ever done a renovation that you really regret?
Not regret. There's 2 things I wish I would have done slightly different. The first house I moved into, we walked in and we noticed how all the carpet was actually discolored around the furniture that had been sitting there. And we're like, you know what? Our stuff we can just put in different rooms. Let's rip out the carpet right now and we'll get it replaced. But to save some money, we were going to rip it out ourselves. So
The hard part,
the underlay. And we had a staircase that there was like 20 stairs on it. And there were, I swear, 100 staples per like each piece of the stair. And so we were doing with pliers on each and every single one. So that is something where never again, I would hire someone to do that. They'll do it way quicker than me. And they're probably a lot more efficient than I am. And yeah, that was the worst one I've ever done. So I don't want to do that again.
So you just tell people, I recommend that you hire
recommend.
someone to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you just, you want to be really tedious for a few days and you pick them out with pliers.
Right. And speaking of tedious, there was a second renovation.
Yes. So our current home, hopefully last one, I move a lot.
Yeah.
You do.
We're going to talk about 3 of my homes today on this podcast. So I moved in and we decided we were going to do renovation right away instead of wait so we could sit and enjoy it. And so we did our fireplace wall. And so we got a new fireplace and centered it and had conduit for the TV to plug in. But we didn't have any plugs to go from like the TV to other electronics. So you could do the TV and maybe one other thing, but if you wanted, say, like one of those frameless TVs or the frame TV, where you need like wiring to go to a condo. We didn't have anything extra there, and we changed it to brick. Originally, we were going to do shiplap, so you could like cut a hole if you ever forgot something. We did brick.
And you can't
all
really
the way
drill,
to the ceiling.
Can't really drill through that.
No. So I'm like, okay, we're committed to that. So that's the other thing that I would have added had I thought about it a little bit more. But the renovations are overwhelming when you're in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the little things you don't think of.
No.
Yeah. And Sheila, have you ever seen renovations in other people's homes that are questionable, that they love?
Yes. And it always tends to be the one where it's DIY, where they didn't hire a professional to do it. They kind of like went to Home Depot, they Googled how to spackle or back butter, and they put it up, and it'll be always like the hexagon tiles, and they don't quite line up with each other.
Hexagons are unforgiving.
Yeah, because it's something you can see from pretty far away, and you're like, that doesn't line up.
All right.
So you're like, why did you do that? Just take your time, or hire a professional if you can.
And do you ever worry about resale when you're renovating your home?
I am, yes. Like, I'll be like, oh, I don't want to turn this, like, tear down a bedroom wall and make it like a spare man cave or anything. Like, I want to keep the resale value where it is. I don't want to do anything that's going to devalue the home. But at the same time, I want to enjoy it while I'm there. So if I want to paint it a weird color or do something weird to the ceiling, I want to do that.
Okay. So on that note, I'm going to share a little story about a condo.
Speaking of weird things on the ceiling.
I'm going to talk about a condo, and then Kevin, I've got some questions for you after. But I once walked into a condo for a listing appointment. I had Chris Linden with me, who is another realtor in our office, my brother-in-law. He was kind of training at that time. So I said, hey, why don't you come with me? I've never met these people before, and you can see how I conduct my listing appointments. Thinking it was just going to be like a regular appointment, real nice. So we went in, and the design was quite something. There was Italian mosaic marble floors. There was a French drop empire chandelier in the dining room with yellow walls. There were columns. There were lime green walls in the kitchen with bubble cabinets from black to white. There was purple paint. There were swirls in the ceilings with lights that turned colors if you flicked a special switch with a drop. There was so much tile work in the bathroom that there was no gap. It was just tile, floor to ceiling tile that looked like it had not been installed very well.
That's a lot of bold choices in a condo space.
You could stand in the middle of the condo and turn around, and it's like you saw all the Vegas casinos in one location just by pivoting in a circle. You were in Italy, and then you were in a disco, and then it was wild. And I had learned that these particular sellers had actually worked at a casino, so I figured that's where they were drawing their inspiration from. I can't remember if there was carpet in the unit or not, but you know how casinos always have like crazy casino carpets?
Yeah.
Like that.
It matches like city bus seats.
Yes.
It's always the same.
It's the city bus seat pattern, basically. But it was like if someone drew from that and then they put it in their 500 square foot condo. So it was a lot of choices. And I was going around the home with this lovely couple, and they were so proud of everything that they had put in there. And they were like, so many, and they're broken English, so many expensive, so much money. And I was like, oh, wow. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking at my brother-in-law, behind their back, basically being like, oh my God. Because it was atrocious. It was absolutely, completely and utterly atrocious. And I felt bad because they were very proud of these upgrades. And I was very fortunate that the number that they wanted to sell for, I would never be able to get it for them in that market. They were $100,000 from where things were selling. That looked nice, for lack of a better term. Like more bland, I would say, like more of a blank slate for
more
people.
appealing to more people.
More appealing to more people,
Yeah.
Because this one was like just out there. So I was very clear to them, hey, I would love to get you that number. Unfortunately, I cannot. I am not the girl to do this for you. You can hire somebody else that maybe can get you that number, but it wasn't me. So I got out of there, and I just couldn't believe I'd never seen anything like that before. So, Kevin, we're going to go to you first. I want you to picture this condo in your head with the bold design choices.
Think Vegas limo.
On methamphetamine. If you're buying this condo, when you walk in, would the lime green walls and casino color schemes scare you off?
It depends. I think if it was cost prohibitive to replace it, and that stuff was not at the end of its natural lifespan, that might scare me.
Right.
But the house we bought, we're pretty good at looking past, what one person's style choices are and kind of just imagining what we're going to do with it. So,
And that's why Kevin is here.
We're going to get into it.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to changes, especially, okay, so that's a really good point. So if something is like a new upgrade, but it's not your choice, like if it's a new product, but it's not your style, that would be a lot different than if it was like outdated, for example. So it would have potentially impacted what you would have offered on the home to make those changes.
I would want to factor that in.
Okay. Would you ever add a really loud or bold design choice to your home that you could enjoy, even if it could affect resale value?
I don't know. I'm not allowed.
Let's
I don't know.
let's say the wife really liked it and that's what she wanted, and you knew that it would not going to be good on the resale side.
Well, I think it's how
Yes,
correctable is it, right? Like if you're
Oh.
replacing your kitchen cabinets with something that can't be painted and
Right.
can't be changed, I think that's a stupid decision.
Yeah.
If you're just painting something you can paint over,
Right.
Yeah.
And you have a
cares?
teenager, so they could want lime green.
they could.
They could want
They
lime green.
could.
But you could just paint over it, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think it's like how correctable is this?
Okay.
And what time span are we talking about? We're pretty stable. We know we're not going to move in the next 5 years. So
Right.
in 5 years, who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. That's a great answer. Okay, so Gary, this is I'm very selective of who I have in the room. Now, Gary, this condo is of particular note because I remember logging into my computer and seeing the listings that were coming up about a year later, and I recognized this address, and I'm like, you're kidding me. Because Gary is now the listing agent of this particular condo. Gary, I'm just kind of wondering, how did you handle the conversation with that seller? Because did you see it when it was the way that I'm describing it?
Yep.
And I'm not exaggerating, right? Like,
No, it was extremely unique, and unfortunately, with tile, it's tough to get off.
yeah.
Flooring I feel like can be replaced a little bit easier because you can just peel it up and
Sand it
replace
down,
it.
yeah.
Or if it's laminate, you can just whatever you use,
Rip it out, yeah.
rip it out,
Yeah.
and then just lay down new laminate. But in this case, they had laid down tile throughout the entire place, tile floor in a condo, like in the entire condo.
Yeah.
And you have to use the mortar to get the tile down, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to get off. So in this circumstance, the problem was that it was going to cost so much to get it just back into a normal state that I really felt bad for them because they loved it. And I was like, oh man, like it is going to cost a fortune to even just get it back to what it was previously.
Yeah, and they spent, I feel like they spent a lot of money on those renovations. I remember having that conversation with them, and I feel like, because so here they are trying to recoup the value of what they put into it, and they're asking, at that time for me, it was a number that was unattainable. How did you handle the conversation with them about the fact that that wasn't probably everyone's taste?
Well, you certainly feel bad because they loved it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and good for them, doing the reno to something that they loved. And hey, tile floors in detached houses, you see it all the time.
Yes.
Right? Even in new houses. But with a condo, very rare.
Yeah.
And they loved it. And I just had to be honest with them that it's not what people are going for in today's day and age. I'm glad they did it for themselves. For resale value, it's going to cost somebody way more money to come in and just get it back to what it was.
So did you just rug it over for the photos? Like what?
So, I was just honest with them. I was just
Yeah.
like, hey, this is going to be a difficult sale because it's not for everybody. I'm happy you guys did it for yourself, but it's very unusual, and obviously they were really surprised, because some people are just not as in touch with what's in the design side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for them, they thought it was like the bee's knees.
Right.
But I get it because, hey, I'm not a designer either. So I always battle with that, even when I do renos as well. What's in, what would be good resale? And for them, they thought it'd be good resale. And I just had to be honest with them and let them know, like, this is not what people are looking for. And luckily, I was the third or fourth realtor in.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you paved the way for me a little bit, but they were a lot more receptive to my feedback, and that's all you can do. You just be honest with them.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're obviously wondering why it hadn't sold previously. And I just had to be honest with them, like, hey, it's because of the rentals that you've done. And
Did you get them to? I feel like when I was going through your listing pictures, the lime green was gone, and like
I got
they-
them to paint.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they asked for my recommendations,
Right.
and without an extreme cost to remedy, the painting was the easiest one we could nail out for them to list. And it did make it a lot more appealing, just in welcoming senses.
Yeah.
Because they had a yellow laundry room, a green bedroom.
Yeah.
They had a blue ceiling. And I was like, just paint it a generic white, and at least it'll be one less thing
Yeah.
that people are
Just
looking
tones
at.
down
being
the
like,
space
what the
a
heck?
little bit.
You know?
Yeah, because it was like a rainbow on speed in there. So
There was lots going on.
yeah, I forgot about the blue ceiling, which isn't weird to me because I have a blue ceiling in my house.
You do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That is odd.
that's why I probably didn't notice
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah. You're not opposed to doing unique things in your house.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. You see, I'm
And-
talking a big game here, but I have a blue ceiling in my house, which no one notices.
They
Yeah.
they had
They
a
don't notice.
reason to do everything that they did, because I asked them, like, you know, why the blue ceiling? I can't remember what they said, but there was a specific reason why they did it, to something for the heavens or something,
Yeah.
where you're eating, where the dining area, and so it makes it even a little bit more difficult to be frank with them. But luckily, again, yeah, you paved the way for me, and they were receptive, so I could swoop in there and get the deal
Yeah,
done.
get that.
No problem.
Get the paycheck.
Yeah.
You're welcome. So then, did you have any big requests for them? Like, because I mean, the changes in there were so. The bathroom. It was not installed very well, unfortunately. I feel like somebody really took them for a ride.
I remember that bathroom like it was yesterday, and it really looked like they just laid tile on top of tile, and
Yes.
there was literally
Oh.
like an inch
Yeah.
thick of tile, it looked like. And yeah, you feel horrible for them, because he said, you know, they hired a reputable contractor and spent a lot of money, and I think they were taken advantage of slightly. So I really did feel for them, and it would have cost a fortune to do. And they had the right idea in a lot of the aspects of
Yeah.
it, so somebody could keep some of the stuff they did, but I knew how much work that it would take to kind of get it back to what it needed to be, so I just simply told them to paint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what was the? Because obviously buyers came in and viewed it. How did that go?
Good question.
Because it sold. Because you sold it.
It did sell,
You
yeah,
sold
and it for the right price, stuff will sell.
Right.
You know, it will always work for somebody for the right price. And obviously, the general feedback was it's very funky. It's very funky, because it is.
That's
it
a
is-
great word for that comment.
Yeah.
It is hard to tell from photos, and then you really get in there, like you said, talk about the finishings,
Yeah.
and just seeing how it's done in person, and you're like, whoa! Like, even though the bathroom wasn't actually that bad, like they had white tile, though it was literally everywhere.
Yeah.
And they had like a above counter sink and stuff. They had the right idea in most aspects. It was just done
Poorly executed.
very poorly.
Too much
Yeah.
of too many good things.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it was like they spun a wheel and was like, now we will do this. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
with all
Which
the
at
finishings.
the casino, sometimes you do.
And
Maybe that's
I
what
can
it
see
is.
how they spent the money, because they literally had a drop ceiling. Again, you don't typically see in a condo
No.
a drop ceiling with a spiral drop ceiling
Yeah.
with a LED light in it, and it changed colors with the remote. Like,
Yeah.
Oh.
you know, and they just thought
Fancy.
it was the
on
coolest thing
on the mosaic
ever.
and that floor was beautiful. The marble mosaic.
It was
floor
not cheap.
Beautiful.
Like, tile is not cheap, and I can see where the money went into. Not fantastically installed, but
yeah.
I can see where they put the money into. Exactly. Mosaic flooring, and there was a ton of detail in it,
Yes.
a ton of detail in all of the marble and everything that they use. And keep in mind, it was like a 1990 condo.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, you know, a custom home in somewhere where you're dumping big
Yeah.
money into marble flooring and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was an older condo, so.
Yeah, I remember seeing that when it came up, and I was like, "No way!" And I was going through the photos, I'm like, "I cannot believe!" And I tracked you down and was like, "How did you do it?
The
How
green
did
is
you
gone.
do it?"
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was so insane when we went in there, and again, these people, your heart breaks for them because they
Totally.
did spend so much money and they absolutely loved it, but we just couldn't couldn't quite land on the same page as to what that would equate for worth, because a lot of people, when they're doing renovations, they want 100% of that profit back or more, and really it equates to half if it's a good upgrade. And if it's not someone else's taste, it can actually be a
Deter
detriment.
people.
Yeah, it can
Totally.
it can be a cost.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. So Kevin, you have an interesting story. Because for every unique home, there's a unique buyer, and that's you. Except you weren't actually there. So you are one of 2 or 3 clients that I've had that did not view the home prior to purchasing it. So we get a lot of people that come in, especially from out of province, or we have people where the couples are both on call and one has to work and the other one is home. So I sometimes do transactions where I have people assigned and one party maybe doesn't view. So I actually went house hunting with Kevin's wonderful wife, and we had a lot of fun. And we viewed this home, and we were FaceTiming with you in Ottawa, I believe is where you were. And you weren't there. And the sellers truly loved this home. They loved the home, and it was a great home. But there was some interesting design choices because they were such, I don't know if eccentric or artistic, I want to say.
Very
They were
artistic.
artistic
Yeah.
people, and their love for art came out in their home. So obviously you ended up purchasing it, and I remember like it was yesterday us going through the house, and I was watching you explore it for the first time. You're already the owner, you've already been given the keys.
You have paid for it.
And there's a lot of nervous laughter. Like, it's laughter and it's nervous laughter. And I'm like, he's either gonna laugh and be okay, or he's gonna cry. It's one of the two. Like, I was there. I was ready. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. And you're going room by room, and there was kind of surprise after surprise. And I remember being on the doorstep and looking up, and there was a mirror. And I'm like, why is there a mirror on the door? Like, it was very different, right? Yeah.
Not another ceiling mirror.
No, not like no ceiling mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. So what was the biggest benefit you saw as a result of like the uniqueness of the home?
Well, the first benefit was that house is what made us motivated to sell our house.
Right.
So you remember we said, we called you up, hey, we're going to sell our house, and we did the plans, and then we backed out. We said, oh, we're just not ready. And, I kind of need to get talked off the ledge on some things. And so I just wasn't ready. And that house came up, and we drove by it, I bet you 10 times.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, but it'll be gone. But that's what pushed us to sell our house. So then they're like, well, there's no way it's still going to be available when we actually sell. But then Christy sells our house in it was 3 hours or something.
It was very quick.
It was pretty quick.
Not a big deal.
No big deal. No, it's all right.
Yeah.
And the house was still available. So because it was so unique, it kind of sat, and the price had dropped.
Yes.
So I was
because
like-
it was so unique.
Because it was so unique. So it benefited us exactly. It was perfect.
And
Worked out
the
perfect.
reason why we weren't sure if this was going to come together for them or not is that this house was located on a nice big lot in a beautiful neighborhood, big trees, and it's like the place that everybody wants to move to.
Yeah.
So that alone, we figured, this thing's not going to be there, but the market was relatively slower at that time. Not in your neighborhood, of course, but a lot of those interesting tastes were the reason that you're right, it probably stayed, because a lot of people can't look past that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And which is funny, because I know that you kind of were interested at first, then you kind of backed off, and I remember you maybe weren't even going to go see it, and your wife and I were like, no, we're going to go see it. And she saw it, and then she wanted me to come back and see it with her because she had gone through an open house. So then it was my turn to go see it. And did you ever see it before? No, you didn't.
No.
You weren't in it at all, just from online.
Drove by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
Looks
weirdo.
great from here.
Yeah. And then, looks great from the
here.
lawn.
Yeah.
And then, so when we went through, what was your overall feeling of the home as you were walking through and seeing kind of the extreme things that were in there?
Yeah, I mean, well, it was empty at the time. So, I mean, just to give some idea of what we're talking about here, when you walk into the foyer after you get by the mirror on top of the entryway, the entire foyer is painted blue, like 2 stories up, and with white clouds on it. Very well done if you like blue clouds. And I'd say about 20% of the people that come to our house love it. They're like, oh my God, I love this. Did you guys do this? And they're like legit impressed.
Oh, you
Yeah.
kept it.
So far.
Hell,
Our renos,
okay.
our
right
renos
on.
start in a few weeks. So we
Awesome.
we gave ourselves 6 months to just get used to the space and decide what we actually want to do.
That's
figure out those
smart.
little things.
So smart.
Yeah, it's also the result of a lot of indecision on what we're going to do. So
I
can't be like,
Yeah.
it wasn't all strategic.
Paint colors. You're just picking paint
Yeah.
colors out.
So you're keeping the clouds, is what you're saying.
Extending them.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. See, you just
One's
never
gonna be
know.
Sunset,
You
night
just
sky.
never know.
It's going to be a whole motif.
I love
forget
it.
your question.
Oh, just yeah.
what was
just-
my-
how
what
did you
was-
feel as you were going through? Because, like you said, the first thing you see are those clouds on the ceiling, and then you go into another area.
No, but see, my big concern with the house was more the size and the layout.
Right.
That was and you can study the plans all you want. You're not going to understand how. So as soon as I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, this is more than big enough,
Right.
I was fine.
Right.
I was fine with that. So I knew everything else would be changeable.
Yeah, because and the couple that lived there, they were so sweet. And there was this interesting door with like stained glass window, and then in another room there's like it almost looks like steel, and it was done with like a mache almost, and
Like
and
it has
then
character.
yes, and in the backyard there were these like what are they called? They're like sheds, but they're not real sheds.
They're called garden follies.
What?
Oh.
Yes, it's a real word, folly. It's
Okay.
a real word. It's like it's a building that doesn't serve any purpose other than just to look like a building. And so
Okay.
it's these two little sheds, and they have like pillars and windows.
They're beautiful.
And I'm pretty sure raccoons nest in them, and that's all. Like, and rats come out of it. Like
The raccoon.
Raccoon shed.
houses.
Yeah.
the raccoon house. Like,
They love it.
but they're just and the guy's like, he meant one to be an actual functioning shed, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. It's a design. It's a what do you call it? An engineering failure on my part because it's thinking I was going to tear it down. It's just so pretty to look at, and it was on my list of like day one. I'm going to tear that thing down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's nice to look at because it's kind of
Oh.
like it looks cool, and there's like vines on it, and it's
Yeah.
like right out the kitchen window. So I'm like, I actually like that. So
Yeah.
it's like, we're like,
You look at it, you're like, where am I? Am I like English countryside?
It's
or
very
like
pretty. The yard looks like a magical forest. Like it's really and there's
There you go.
birds that have names and everything. Like it's quite storybook, I would say. And then, so what was the most unique feature when you walked in and you had that initial kind of lay of the land and you were looking? Was there anything that was really, oh wow?
You know the thing, so you've got the blue that you go in, and then you walk into the kitchen. To your left is the family room that has the full metal wall.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't even know how they did it, because it looks like a rusted steampunk type wall.
Yes.
With bolts on the wall and like a seam in it. I don't know how they did it. It's very well done.
Yeah.
And then you turn it, another wall was painted. He mixed like sand and plastered this wall. And it looks like an Italian alleyway where the plaster's chipping away and there's
Oh, wow.
brick revealed underneath.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how he did it. Like, it's really well done.
Very artistic.
you have to be creative and actually to be able to execute it, like be good.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and there's like a faded sign on there that's a brand of, I think, some sort of, some sort of alcoholic drink that's really big in Italy or something. So it's a
Yeah.
very Italian type theme.
Nice.
It's just, it's really, and there's another, when you go in the kitchen on the island, there was like this foot bar for the island.
Oh, yeah.
So you could put your, like
Cool.
a foot bar, and I'm like, I kind of made fun of it. Like, what a stupid, and then sure enough, anytime we're in the kitchen talking, like, hey, our feet are on this bar.
I'm using the damn foot bar.
Yeah.
It's like everything, like, you know, like that mirror over the entryway that you're joking about.
Yeah.
You can see exactly who's at the front door from the kitchen because of that mirror, and it blocks. It doesn't. It for some. I don't know how he got the refraction right, because it looks like it just reflects greenery from the
Yes.
yard.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're
like,
keeping the mirror too.
the mirror's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I didn't
Sounds like you got your dream house.
So it's stuff that you look at it at face value and you're like, okay, that's an interesting choice, but I'm glad you decided to not touch anything for a few months because now you're going, oh, well, I see why they did that, or oh, this is actually I'm kind of using this now, so that's a good idea.
Yes.
And some things you're just like, hey, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to change it. But there's other things like the garden follies that are going to stay for a little while.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to be.
I think back to when Sheila bought her townhouse, and it was like white on white on white with white cabinets and white countertops and
You bet.
white walls.
That's
and
exactly what I
it was
wanted.
probably like white floors, and it was just white on white and white. And you guys had a lot of colorful artwork and stuff.
We
so
did. It looked like an art gallery in my house.
It looked more like a gallery
Yeah.
because it was very like builder white on white on
Yeah.
white and white.
It was white quartz, not even with anything in it, like any
just
like
white.
flecks or anything. It was just white waterfall, white cabinets. The floor was like a very light shade of wood tone, and
It was
that's safe.
boring.
yeah,
That's
was
why
like
builders do
LED
it.
lights
Because
that were very
it's
white.
very neutral.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
some plants and some color,
yeah,
some artwork would really change that space, but you don't have to.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your thing, for sure. And then
We
so
fight about tones of light.
I just oh yeah,
You won.
I'm a big like lighting person.
Yeah.
So but what's a what's a kind of a positive, because you've obviously got a home that's been very customized compared to like a builder beige box. What would you say a benefit would be to buying the one that's kind of more eccentric?
Well, I think the benefit for us is it actually motivated us to invest in a legitimate reno. Whereas our last house was like exactly that, builder beige. And towards the end of us living there, it's like, we should probably replace the carpets, but I don't hate them, right? Like that, I don't hate it.
You're like, it's all right.
It's fine, right? But this house, like the cabinets are 30 years old. They're at the end of their life cycle anyway. So it's just time to redo the cabinets. And the flooring is 30 years. Like it's just, it's time anyway. So that aligned with, maybe it's just not quite our style. It's like, I don't have to feel guilty about sinking a bunch of money into a reno because it needs it. And it's going to be exactly what we want.
Yeah.
We're doing it pretty neutral. We've hired a designer.
So not getting green cabinets.
Trendy.
Very smart. Yes.
So Italian beige counter. No.
Mosaic tile.
Yeah. Now he's got some inspiration from the condo conversation we had. Sheila, did you ever paint a wall in your white on white townhouse?
That's the thing. I had all these ideas of cool things I could do in there, and I never did them because I'm like, well, everything serves a purpose and it's fine. And so, like, the most I did in there was right when we were about to sell, we had to do like a little bit of patching and painting, and we painted one wall like a slightly different shade of white with some blue in it. Like you can't even see it unless your eyeball is right.
I don't even think I knew that.
Yeah, and I know it didn't look like we painted, but it was a slightly blue shade of white, and that was the only thing we did in there because everything was, it's new. There's no point in touching it, even though we don't really like it. It's what was available to us and we bought it. So. And
your first home was more earth tone.
Yeah.
So it's funny because like your table and your art were all earth tone.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, so it's just different, right? Yeah. Because you moved in there and it's very pretty. It was a very pretty home.
Yeah.
But it was very like
it was like
white
felt very like cold, like almost sterile because everything was so neutral, and we just had art on the walls and kind of things that didn't really match in there, but and then we moved again.
And then again. And again.
No more.
That's why she knows real estate so well. Yeah. She just does it over
Personal
and over.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done a few renos in my home over the last 10 years, but we've really spaced it out because when we bought our home, it was trashed. It was completely destroyed on the inside from the man who had lived there prior. And there were definitely some weird things because, for example, in one of our bedrooms, if you open up what should be the closet door, it actually leads to like a very tiny hallway and it goes into a bathroom.
It's the Narnia closet.
And we call it the Narnia closet because it's not actually a closet. It leads to like another dimension. And if you're walking through my house and if you've never been up there before, it will turn you around. You can't figure out where you are because you'll come back out into the hallway and you'll be like, how did I get here? Yeah. So we always think to ourselves like, we're going to, because my husband's like, well, we should seal that up and make it a closet. And I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of cool. Like, like what kid in that room would not want the ability to go from his from their secret closet into like the
imagine hide and seek with that thing? It's awesome.
Yeah. It's basically like a run to a panic. No, I'm just kidding. A panic room. But yeah, so there was that. And then the seller, unfortunately, he seemed to be almost like manic. Like you could tell that he had like started a renovation project and not quite finished it. And there was like insulation coming down in like the bathroom because he had ripped out like what I call the toilet room. You know what I mean? Like you get a big bathroom and they have that one little room for the toilet. There's like nothing else there. It's just the toilet room. So he had like taken out the wall and like, so there was a strip of ceiling open with insulation coming down. And like there were walls that were painted like very dark red, like chocolate brown, and like my poor husband's up on scaffolding because we didn't have any money. Like we were trying to paint ourselves. Party. Yeah, well, it was Chris and I and my parents, but I remember putting up like coat after coat on this red. Everything was really dark red, and I love red, but you don't decorate with red. Like that's just not what you do. So it was kind of crazy. So over the years, like Chris has now got his gym in the garage from COVID, and like we've made all these upgrades that we really appreciate. And we are enjoying them as we go because we don't have plans to sell right now. But we know that when we're picking them out, they have to work for us, but they also have to improve the property in the event that we ever wanted to liquidate that asset. That's how we think of it anyway.
And the nice thing, like, you guys have taken your time doing renos, but they all still flow together.
Yes, it's all the same theme throughout the house.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if not, you get, and this is how I got 2 bathrooms renovated at once with my husband last year. Because I said to him, because we have 3 bathrooms upstairs. One we did right away when we moved in. And then the other 2 we hadn't touched until this last year. And I kind of said to him, I'm like, well, if we're doing 1, if the contractor's there, we could just hit 2 in the shopping cart rather than 1 in the shopping cart.
It'd be so easy.
Well, it's 1 round of electrician, 1 round of plumber, 1 round of tile, and it all got done. And now our bathrooms match and it looks proper for the house. Because otherwise it would be like this one done this year and like
this
how
bathroom's
many...
2008. This one's 2020.
Exactly, because styles change. So we
Yeah.
tried to keep them as neutral as possible. And then we try to set a budget and have a clear plan before starting. What we noticed with our home is the second we open up a wall, there's going to be a surprise. It's like the surprise house. Like you start something and it's like, and they're like, oh, that doesn't work. Like, of course it doesn't. I only found my second water shut off like last month or whatever when they finished, or in the summer when they finished the renovation, we found the second water shut off for the side of the house.
It was in an upstairs bathroom.
I've been in this house for 10 years and I didn't know where that second water shut
Behind the wall?
We couldn't find it. It was like
behind the drywall?
No, I think it was just under the sink, but it wasn't exposed.
You would never
I've
think
had
that it was
clients that
connected.
literally had to cut the drywall open to find the water shut off.
Yeah, which you're not allowed to do.
Yeah,
It is
but,
not
yeah.
code. Like you
Yeah.
have to have those
Crazy.
exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's things that we're still learning. And like the other day, I was blow drying my hair, and my blow dryer didn't work. My hair was soaking wet, and I had to run out and grab a blow dryer, and it was like a whole thing. And I realized that the reset circuit for my upstairs plugs is in my downstairs bathroom.
Yeah. I've heard
Why?
In the powder room. Yeah.
Why is that the case? I don't know. And I'm just learning things about that house every time.
Every house has its own little quirks.
And I know like which walls have things in them now. So
Yeah.
I know that when I move, I'm going to have to leave like a list of
Instructions.
Yes. And Kevin, when you bought your home, the sellers were so wonderful and they left you a lot of details. And I remember on key handover day, we were going around and they had left like printed out notes and they were taped to like this wall and this wall and this wall, and they left a bird food behind. Like they really cared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There was
I'd
a
love
lot
to
of
see it.
notes, wasn't there?
Yeah. No, so not only did they leave a lot of notes explaining some of the little particulars of, hey, this is, little idiosyncrasies, like
Yeah.
these 2 switches only work if that switch is on kind of thing. But he also gave me his email address, and I've emailed him probably about 5 times.
Aw.
Just like, hey, do you know? And, ask him a question. He responds like within half a day
Oh,
with like really fulsome. They had a really strong emotional attachment to that house. So it was really
Yeah.
important to them that they knew it was going to a family. Like that just meant a lot to them. So we've kept in a bit of touch with them, which is pretty cool. But the birds, they've named the birds. There's Stellar Jays that come,
Yeah.
and they're on peanuts. So they left us a big bag of peanuts
Yeah.
because Miles and I forget the other one's names, but Miles and his friends
Oh my
get a
God, I
peanut
love
every day.
this.
And if you don't give it to them, they'll knock on the window.
Oh,
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
They're like, excuse me,
Yeah.
you're
It's
late.
like, it's like, if you're knocking on the window in the morning, it's Miles. Who's Miles?
Yeah.
It's like the Stellar Jay.
Yeah, you're like,
Who
is Miles?
Who's
in
Miles?
the shed.
yeah. And when we were there, the birds were outside and they were there to basically greet us to the property, and there were the
Yeah.
peanuts, and we had our instructions. And
The welcome
That's
committee.
pretty awesome.
yeah, it was really nice, I thought, because the backyard does look like this magical forest. It's really wonderful. Now, Gary, you've done multiple renovations over the years, and I know when you're talking about that condo couple, you've full-blown renovated condos before.
Yeah.
So you know the work that's involved. So when you're saying like, hey, this is hard to do, or hey, this is expensive to do, you've done it.
Totally.
Do you do a lot of that work yourself?
First time I did it, yes. Then you kind of learn from experience and how much time stuff actually takes. And I managed the whole project last time. I did a full condo gut renovation, the last one I did.
Right.
And even that, like I didn't really do much of the work myself, but I managed all the trades. Even that was a decent amount of work.
Yeah.
But
That can be hard to get trade guys to show up. If you
yeah,
don't have a
just-
contractor, it can be tough.
exactly just
Yeah.
scheduling and stuff. So yeah, I've pretty much been hands on with almost everything.
And so then do you pick out because your last condo was beautiful. Did you pick out the designs? Like, was that all selected by you?
That is one of the most stressful things that I did during that whole renovation and Kevin's ahead of the game because they've hired a designer. And if I were to go back and do it again, I would definitely spend the money and hire a designer to just pick what colors go with what. And I'm a guy, obviously. But I don't know like fashion design trends.
What goes
with what? Like
yeah.
I am an old tradesman, you know, so I don't know any of that stuff. And that was the most stressful part of the renos that I did, was just picking out the colors, because I wanted to think resale too. Like, what's trending right now? What do people want to see? Like, what do the new builds look like? So I didn't want to put anything in there that was, you know, not in style, not good for resale. Mm-hmm. So that was a challenge. So looking back at it, if I were to do any renos, I would certainly spend the money and hire a designer.
I'll tell you something weird. I was in the wedding industry before real estate, and weddings were 6 months ahead in the like fashion and decor than houses were. So like if you saw a trend at a wedding where it would be like pin tuck or like a certain kind of fabric that was being used or a certain kind of decor element, 6 months later you would see them in the home trends.
Oh, fun.
Isn't that weird?
Well, they say like
Very
every
odd.
20 or 30 years, the old trends come back, because you notice now they're putting oak cabinets now in brand new builds.
Yes.
And oak was a 1990, 1980, 1970 style.
They're coming back
It's coming
around.
back. A little bit of different design, but
Yeah.
it's coming back.
Yeah, anything kind of like older antique is coming back for sure.
Yep.
And then you wait 10 years and that'll be out.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's like the bell bottoms, you know.
Yeah.
They're back, baby.
They are back. So Gary, when you're talking to sellers and they're asking you, hey, what should I renovate before selling? Well, you know, what should I renovate this room? Should I not renovate this room? Because we had 2 listing appointments this week where our sellers walked us around and asked us, hey, what should I change? Or what should I do here? Like, does it translate to dollar volume or not?
That is a really good question, and we get asked that a lot, as you do too, right? And the most common thing that I probably get asked is, what can I do to get the best return on investment?
Right.
And the number one answer for that is just simply painting the place.
Yeah.
Painting it a nice neutral color will get you the most money back on your investment. And then like you and Chris were dealing with, like, they're like, we want to reno this bathroom. Well, are you going to reno all of the bathrooms or just this one?
Just
like,
the one.
if you're just going to do one, don't bother. If you're going to do everything, but then if you still have a dated kitchen, you know, how is that going to look? So it's really important that you pick and choose which renos you want to do if your intent is to sell. Painting for sure. Then I would say second would be either flooring or kitchen. You know, because those are always the focal point of a house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if a client asks, what should I reno? Obviously, find out what their budget is and how in depth they want to go. But it is a question we do get asked a lot.
Yeah, I always try to tell people it's painting and lighting is the quickest ways to update for the least amount of money.
Exactly.
And then again, like you were saying, if you're going to sink money into the big areas, it's always the kitchen and the bathrooms. Like that's always seems to be like where the focus, if you're going to do anything, because other stuff tends to be more surface.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then also, do I trust that person to do it in a tasteful way? Or because there's like, I don't know if you've ever seen online, there's like a meme where someone is renovating and they find a photo of, I think it's like an old Asian couple, and they were like, we renovated in whatever age. What's wrong with our reno? Why are you renovating now?
So good. I love
And
that.
hide things behind the wall for like when someone is going to rip it out. It's like a little time capsule.
Yeah, or they put like fake skeletons
under decks.
Yes.
under decks,
Yeah,
so that
that's
when
funny.
the next person's ripping it up, they look down and they, it's sick, but it's funny.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
It is pretty funny, yeah. So I don't know if I would do that. But basically, just to sum up the conversation, whenever you're house hunting, don't be shocked at other people's tastes because it's their house. And it does take a special person to kind of see past that because most people aren't visual. Like, I know that when you and your wife were going through, you could kind of picture your own space, but you knew you were going to make changes. And it was really like the neighborhood, the square footage, that kind of stuff that sold it. But at the end of the day, it's the seller's home. It's their life. They don't have to make choices for you. And if they do, great. And if they don't, then it's up to yours. It's maybe not a brand new place. And if you're buying brand new, well, then you'll get a home like Sheila's.
Yeah.
And then if you renovate before a sale, you're not going to get the full cost back. So it's not like it's going to improve unless you're adding like a suite or something like that. It's not generally going to improve your value that much because people always want to be reimbursed for what they spent and then some.
Yeah.
But really the math on it is that they get about 50% of the value back. So say they spend 70 grand on a kitchen, they might get 35 or maybe 40, 45, depending on kind of the finishings in the kitchen.
It's not like the TV math. You did a $30,000 reno, and now your house worth 100 grand more.
Yes. Do not believe what you see on TV. Those shows kill me.
Yes.
Because a lot of times they're only in the markets in the States, and the tax implications of doing that now, even then, like it's basically impossible.
You made a good point with actually Kevin buying his place, because for both buyers and sellers, there's a few things that you can look at in their circumstance, because the house was so uniquely done and kind of a little bit too loud. They might have got perhaps, well, it worked out for you guys because the house was still on the market after a period of time. You know, what would have happened if the sellers did those paint touch-ups and they did that? So you guys as the buyer being able to see past kind of what you saw in the initial walkthrough, knowing that it could be easily changed or changed, helped you guys get into the place that you're in. And then if you're a seller, you know, and you're looking to sell, well, maybe if they would have done those changes themselves and did the paint and kind of made it a little bit less unique, they could have got a quicker sale, you know. So those are some things to keep in mind when you're buying and selling.
Because some people can't even see past paint colors. Like
even though a lot of people can't. You know, they'll see the first few photos and they'll go, wow, yellow, like next.
Done. Yeah.
And it's as simple as, you know, spending a little bit of money on paint and you got like a brand new place.
Yeah, it's literally sweat equity. Like our house, when we bought it, like I said, it was trashed. And when I took my parents through it, it was so dirty and disgusting. My mom's like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because it was so gross in there. But Chris and I were like, we like it. We can change. We can change it.
Paint,
you know, and little by little, like I said, we didn't go in there and like with a wrecking ball or anything, but we did little by little, and we've totally made it our own, and we've been able to do that over time. But if we wouldn't have been able to see past that, it never would have happened. And we had a home to sell at that time, so if it was really fixed up and renovated, it probably would have sold for number one, more money and way quicker, and we wouldn't have had the opportunity to sell our home first. So so there's a benefit for sure. If you've got that kind of crazy house out there, it might not sell as fast, and if you can look past it and you want to make the changes or you embrace the changes, then you can really turn a profit, I think, anyway.
And if you're gonna do renos to sell the place, you know, it'd be a good idea to engage with a realtor or a designer.
Yes. Ask a friend.
Please
but you know, if you're doing it for yourself, exactly. If you're doing it for yourself and your plan is to stay there for an extended period of time, then by all means, keep in mind, resale, people go with the trends. They want to see what's, you know, in, what's hip, what's out there.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll break the hard news to you, and then Gary can turn around and sell it. No,
yes. Plan.
Anyways, that's everything. Cheers, you guys. Thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Christy Massero and Sheila Maychik.